I'm Charles Bennett, lay leader and lay delegate to annual conference. This week, General Conference began in Charlotte, North Carolina. The United Methodist Church, Western Jurisdiction, California Pacific Annual Conference, or CalPAC, Reconciling Ministries Network, Methodist Federation for Social Action, MFSA, and other email lists I belong to have been sending me, and perhaps you as well, emails about it every day. In between my substitute teaching, I've taken time to watch portions of the General Conference. This brings me to a segment I like to call Full Court Press. Your first question is probably, what is General Conference? General Conference is a meeting held once every 4 years where clergy and lay delegates elected from the various parts of Methodism meet for worship and decide under what rules and principles Methodism will operate for the next 4 years. There was a special General Conference in 2019, which resulted in an affirmation of the traditionalist language in the Book of Discipline, much to the dismay of many Western jurisdiction Methodists. There was supposed to be a General Conference in 2020, but the pandemic was that year, so the 2020 conference was pushed back 3 times, so now, according to Methodist law, this session of General Conference is both the 2020 and 2024 session, and legislation proposed right before the pandemic can be taken up now. Since the pandemic, the Global Methodists, or GMC, and others have disaffiliated from the church, and General Conference will hear several petitions revising the terms for disaffiliation. This issue was serious enough for Bishop Dottie Escobedo Frank to write an article about it. Why should we care about other churches disaffiliating? Because the manner in which they disaffiliate could have implications on our apportionment burden. It's my opinion when GMC simpaticos say, we need a better exit ramp, what they really mean is, we want to leave and saddle the UMC with a lot of liabilities. Once again, that's just my opinion. Proposals include allowing disaffiliating churches to take property with them for free and to extend the disaffiliation window to 2028. While I am dismayed by the current exit ramp squabbling, I also understand that disaffiliation was very nearly on the other foot, with us in the Western jurisdiction looking down the barrel of disaffiliation prior to the pandemic. Can you watch the proceedings of General Conference? Anybody can stream the open sessions from their computers. Should you is the question. It'll be like C-SPAN for Methodism, in that it will either be really, really boring or really aggravating when somebody with whom you disagree has the floor. Opening worship happened on April 23rd with communion and the singing of traditional Methodist hymns. Bishop Thomas J. Bickerton asked the question, "Do you want to be in this room?" A not-so-subtle jab at GMC and their simpaticos who would rather burn down the United Methodist Church than move it forward. Thank goodness most of the people in attendance want to move it forward. The Organization and Rules of Order passed 687 to 29. At past General Conferences, ruled motions had been blocked by GMC and the Wesley Covenant and people like that. However, in the same breath, a motion of concern about underrepresentation by central conferences outside the United States also passed by a wide margin. That's based on the fact that many of their delegates were unable to obtain travel visas, and only 273 of the 370 Central Conference delegates had arrived and registered by opening day. Another committee disqualified all petitions from anyone no longer associated with the United Methodist Church, blocking another avenue that the GMC could have used to generate controversy. Day 2 featured the Council of Bishops address from Jonathan Holston of the South Carolina Conference, a mixture of pontification with UMC news and world news clips from the last 8 years. Young people's addresses were given by Colombian American Alejandra Salamani and Sierra Leonean Cienci T.A. Rogers. The delegates also received a report on the revised social principles, 12 years in the making, and the largest revision since 1972, with the goals of making the principles more succinct, theologically founded, and globally relevant. The changes would, among other things, reinforced the need for Methodists to take action against climate change, with an entire section devoted to the community of creation. Yesterday, delegates received a Book of Discipline report that would formalize regionalization and acknowledge that the United Methodist Church is a decentralized body. There will be conversations on the Book of Discipline held in the CalPAC conference later this year. The end product will have some passages that are mandatory throughout Methodism and other portions that vary by region, which brings me to my next topic, regionalization. A proposal to regionalize the United Methodist Church into 8 regional conferences has advanced out of committee and will soon be taken up in plenary. The 8 regions will be the United States, the Philippines, 3 jurisdictions in Africa, and 3 in Europe. These regional conferences would enjoy doctrinal autonomy and produce their own hymnals and books of disciplines. This situation is already the case in Africa, where they have central jurisdictions, but not in the United States, where any American business must be addressed at General Conference rather than regionally. The U.S., being its own regional conference, has been floated from time to time over the last century. This is an acknowledgement that making disciples is a local matter, and that localities need more doctrinal leeway, particularly in the area of ministering to the LGBT community. Is regionalization a massive change, or just a period on a sentence that's already been written? It's a period on a sentence that's already been written. The gulf between GMCers, Western progressives, and Africans has just gotten wider and wider over the years, and regionalization is the only way to prevent further schism. Finally, how much does this matter for First Methodist Whittier? Well, fortunately, Methodism is more of a bottom-up or center-out religion as compared with Catholicism or Anglicanism that are top-down religions. Methodism does not have a pope or Archbishop of Canterbury that can issue fiats for the whole sect. The book of worship is mandatory in Episcopalianism, but it's optional in Methodism. Local congregations enjoy a great degree of leeway and will continue to do so following any actions taken at this general conference. I would urge members of this congregation to pray for the delegates, pray for guidance and discernment, but also for finding a way toward grace and acceptance. And this has been Full Court Press for April 24th, 2024.